Notre Dame got its 12th commitment of the 2022 class in three-star tight end Eli Raridon. I have blueandgold.com recruiting insider Mike Singer with me here to break it down. But first, I want to make sure you guys are subscribed to our YouTube channel and hit that thumbs up button on this video if you'd be so kind. And of course, for all of our coverage of Raridon's commitment, be sure to go to blueandgold.com. So, Mike, who is Eli Raridon and what is Notre Dame getting?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think you got to start with him being a double legacy. Even though he's technically not, but his grandfather was assistant strength and conditioning coach at Notre Dame in the late '80s, of course, under Lou Holtz. His father, Scott Raridon Jr., was a Army All-American offensive lineman before he played, his playing career at the Fighting Irish in the early 2000s. So when Notre Dame offered Eli in early February, it was kind of like, feel like this one is probably going to happen for Notre Dame. So he's a tight end. He's got the bloodlines that you like for Notre Dame. But and we'll get into his recruitment here in a minute. But as far as him as a player, there's a lot of excitement here. Some folks I talked to about Raridon already feel like he is going to be a guy who's playing on Sundays. I've kind of compared him a little bit to Thomas Fidone, who was the number one tight end in the country per Rivals in the 2021 class, a guy Notre Dame was recruiting. And he ended up signing with Nebraska. And they're from the same area-ish, at least a couple hours. They're both big, long, tight ends who, have like very strong receiving skills, run well. Raridon, both great basketball players. Raridon's not as a high-profile recruit as Fidone was, but Raridon can really play, and I wouldn't be surprised if, he ends up, like a second, third round pick in the NFL draft when it's all said and done. I know that's like high praises and expectations, but I mean, the guy's got the bloodlines that I like. He's got the talent, the size. We were able to see him. He was in South Bend for a self-guided tour of Notre Dame in the city, and we were able to see him while I was in town, and impressive. His dad's a big dude. Eli is very much 6'5.5", 6'6", big dude, long arms, and you see on film he catches the ball really well. He moves well. He's quicker than you would think. I just think all in all, this was a really good get for Notre Dame, and someone that, like, when the staff really dug into his junior film and was like, look at this guy's bloodlines and his connections to Notre Dame, it became a no-brainer take for the Irish.
So a lot of high praise there, and obviously you think, okay, this is a natural commitment or naturally had high interest in Notre Dame given the ties there, but a lot more to it than that. How did this come together?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I said, Notre Dame offered, I believe it was February 9th was the offer date, and I think I wrote up a commitment story just in case, he's gonna, like, that week. Like, I was like, I just don't think this one's going to drag out that long. He was playing a basketball season, which now that I've said that, I want to pop on his junior tape here because he's a really good hoops player. So he looks great on film with hoops. I honestly thought it was going to be quick. He wanted to take his time, and he was focusing on that spring, hoop season. No complaints there. I completely understand, like, putting the season first and then getting into recruiting. Took some self-guided tours this spring, Iowa State, and then Notre Dame was that April 24th weekend. John Mahoney, who actually played his high school ball at Raridon's high school in Iowa, and then was a walk-on at Notre Dame, just played his last season in 2020 for the Fighting Irish. He was also in town when Raridon took his self-guided tour, so they were able to link up and get a real unique tour of someone who just spent a few years at Notre Dame to see campus. So that visit kind of locked things up, I would say. He knew what he wanted at that point, took a week to kind of reflect and decide, look, do I want to go through with these official visits that I have in June, Iowa State, and Tennessee, or do I just want to go ahead and lock this thing up with Notre Dame? And obviously he did.
So tight end been a pretty interesting position to follow in the last few months here with what Notre Dame's 2022 class is going to look like at tight end. Seems like they're not done at tight end, even with Raridon's commitment. What's next, and what do you see happening in this class at that position?
Yeah, well, I mean, it seems like offensive line and tight end, like Notre Dame just doesn't have to offer a lot of guys because they're going to get the dudes they want, like so it's not like expansive boards. I mean, it is a little bit more on the offensive line because you're taking, 3, 4, 5 guys. With tight end, you're taking 1 or 2 a cycle. So, I mean, like right now, I can tell you with pretty much certainty that in this 2022 class, Holden Stays is likely, and if it's not Holden Stays, I don't know if they take anyone. Like that's like it, And then with 2023, they've got 3 tight end offers out. Jackson Howard, big time player from Minnesota, 50 offer guy. Mac Markway, another big time 4-star prospect from St. Louis De Smet, where Jordan Johnson went to school. And then there's a young man, I believe it's Deuce Robinson from Arizona. I think all like the former 2 have already set unofficials for Notre Dame in June. Robinson might take a trip to Notre Dame as well in June. So tight end recruiting, looking up for Notre Dame. You have Raridon in the class. I feel strongly that they're going to get Stays. Just such a strong profile fit for Notre Dame. And then 2023 class looks good early on as well.
So Raridon, like I mentioned, Notre Dame's 12th commit in the class. Mike, where do you see the class kind of going from here, especially as now we're looking at official visits less than 2 months out?
Yeah, so on the screen here, you have 11 commitments. Obviously, we're recording this video before Raridon announced his pledge, so he's not going to be on the screen there. But yeah, like you said, Patrick, 12 commitments. Let's go ahead and sort this by position as well. So you have a receiver, pledge Morion Walker, Jadarian Price, running back. You got your quarterback, couple offensive linemen. So he is the 6th offensive commitment Notre Dame certainly wants to take. Another couple receivers, probably another tight end, like I mentioned, with Holden Stays, another running back, and a couple more offensive linemen. So, I mean, I think at the end of the day, this class is going to get close to 25, if not 25 or 26. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you got Nolan Ziegler down here as an athlete. Agu is listed as an athlete as well. Ziegler's, of course, is a linebacker, strong safety prospect. Darren Agu at defensive end. So Notre Dame's got 3 defensive linemen committed, couple of linebackers, so not a ton of room at either spot left. Defensive line will be really interesting to follow, Patrick. It could be 4, it could be 6, just kind of depending on who and the timeline. A defensive back, I think they'll get to 4 or 5. So again, when you're kind of looking at the math there, but it could get up to close to 30, but I just really think it depends on the timing and who to see how many Notre Dame takes in this class. And in terms of like who could be next to join Notre Dame's 2022 commitment list, again, Stays. I feel like I've mentioned him in this video more than Raridon. Donovan Heinisch, the younger brother of Kurt, of course, feel strongly about where Notre Dame's at with him, as long as that's a prospect that the Irish staff continues to want in the class, which I do feel like is the case. And then, I feel like it's mainly going to be, let's see what happens in June. I mean, if I'm a recruit, I've got 3 or 4 official visits set up already. Like, why would I pop in May? The only reason I feel like would be to just go ahead and lock in a spot. But otherwise, I feel like it's mainly going to be see what shakes out in June with these official visits. Maybe 2, 3 commitments in May, but mainly June and July are going to be really busy months. And then I could see Notre Dame having 80-90% of its class wrapped up by the start of the fall.
There we have it, Eli Raridon, newest member of that 2022 class. Certainly going to be a lot to follow with the class in the next couple of months as we get closer to visits.